I gave my husband's car to my ex because I thought he needed it more, but now I'm divorced and in debt for life. I have made the worst mistake of my life. I've just finalized my divorce, and I came out of it badly, especially because I never thought a car could be so expensive. If I had known, maybe everything would have been different, but it's too late now. What started as a gesture of goodwill ended up destroying my marriage. I was married to Arturo. We were together for less than 5 years. He had a good job, and things were going pretty well. And then, without looking for it, the thing that changed everything happened. One day, out of the blue, I received a message. It was from Leonardo, my ex, a man I had broken up with many years ago and with whom I'd had no contact since. At first, I hesitated to reply. I didn't understand what he wanted from me after so much time. I thought maybe he had the wrong number or that he wanted to talk about something specific. But he wrote again. He asked how I was, if I had gotten married, if I was happy. I'm not going to lie, I was surprised. It also made me a bit curious, and after a few minutes of indecision, I ended up replying to him. We talked about normal things. He told me he just wanted a friend, that he needed to talk to someone, that he was going through a tough time. He seemed kind, nostalgic, almost tender. As the days went by, we started talking more often. Sometimes at night, when Arturo was already asleep, I would still be reading the messages. Leonardo told me that life hadn't been good to him, that he had been without a job for months, that he felt frustrated. He confessed that he had thought about working as a taxi driver, but renting a car was too expensive and he didn't have enough money. I remember that conversation perfectly. His tone was one of defeat. He said that no one trusted him, that they always saw him as a failure. Naively, I felt sorry for him. I was moved. I told him he was intelligent, that he would surely find something, that he shouldn't give up. At that moment, I didn't think anything bad. It was just empathy, or so I thought. Now, looking back, I understand he was manipulating me, but I didn't see it that way at the time. I let myself be carried away by compassion. That was my mistake, genuinely wanting to help and not noticing that someone was taking advantage of it. After several days of chatting, he asked to see me. He said he just wanted to talk in person, to thank me for listening. I hesitated a lot. I didn't tell my husband out of fear, not because I had bad intentions, but because I knew he wouldn't believe me. How do you tell your husband you're going to talk with your ex? It sounds bad, even if there are no ulterior motives, so I preferred to keep quiet. We met in a small coffee shop far from home. It seemed like a harmless reunion to me. We talked for a while about life, about the past. He told me he had changed, that he was trying to be a better person. I saw him so different, so tired. It made me sad. He told me he couldn't find opportunities, that no one would give him a job because of his history. He said he wanted to work as a taxi driver, but the cars were extremely expensive, that he couldn't pay the rent, that he didn't want to ask anyone for money, just a chance. When I got home that afternoon, I felt bad, not for having seen him, but for the helplessness of not being able to help him. And then something came to my mind that, at that moment, seemed logical. We had 2 cars, one that we used every day and another that was stored in another garage, almost forgotten. It was an old car, one of those my husband said he liked a lot, but that he hadn't touched in a long time. To me, it was just a car. I didn't know about mechanics or brands. I just knew it worked and was collecting dust. I thought it wouldn't hurt anyone if I gave it away. It was just sitting there and it could help someone. Arturo never used it, so he wouldn't notice its absence right away. And if he ever asked, I'd think of something to tell him. It was a small gesture, a good deed. I did it from the heart, not to hurt anyone. I went excitedly to give the car to Leonardo. I remember it was drizzling, and he was waiting for me outside his house. When he saw me arrive with the keys, he stood motionless, surprised. I told him it was for him, that he should use it, that I hoped it would help him start over. His eyes filled with tears. He hugged me and repeated that he couldn't accept it. I insisted, telling him that the car wasn't being used, that to me it meant nothing, but for him, it could be a new beginning. He resisted. He said he didn't feel comfortable receiving something like that, but in the end, he accepted it with a mixture of emotion and pride. He looked at me and said he didn't know how to thank me. I replied that he didn't have to, that I just wanted to see him get ahead. And that's when something happened that got out of my hands. He took me in his arms. I pulled away at first, confused, but he insisted. He told me he wanted to thank me, that he didn't know any other way. I felt uncomfortable, I hesitated, but his insistence was gentle, not aggressive. Inside me, a voice told me to pull away, but another told me there was no malice, that it was just a gesture. It all happened very quickly. The way he looked at me, the way he spoke to me, it threw me off. I repeated to myself that I wasn't doing anything wrong, that I was just accepting his gratitude. And then it happened. It was all a mix of surprise and confusion. In that instant, I didn't think about Arturo, I didn't think about the consequences, I only thought I was doing something for someone who needed a hand. It was an impulse, a clumsy act disguised as kindness. Afterwards, I felt strange. Leonardo hugged me and said he would never forget what I had done for him, that this car would change his life. I nodded, still not fully understanding what had just happened. When I got home, I saw my reflection in the mirror and tried to convince myself that I hadn't done anything wrong, that it hadn't been infidelity. It would have been rude to reject his show of gratitude, don't you think? Leonardo sent me messages thanking me, telling me he was happy, that he had started working. It made me feel useful, needed. And I, in my naivety, believed that everything had turned out well. I never imagined that this gesture, which I considered innocent and noble, would become the worst decision of my life. The problem arrived almost 2 weeks later, just when my husband was given vacation time. It never crossed my mind that during his days off, he would want to spend time with that old car. He also didn't tell me he planned to go see it. By that point, I still didn't know how to tell him what I had done, nor how to explain it without it sounding terrible. I thought I could buy some time, that I would eventually find the right words, but I wasn't so lucky. I remember that day clearly. Arturo came into the house with a tense, worried face, almost shouting. He asked me if I knew where his car was. I didn't immediately understand what he was referring to. I told him to calm down, for us to sit and talk, but he insisted. He wanted me to tell him right now where it was. I had no escape. I was silent for a few seconds, looking for a gentle way to say it, but there was no way. So I ended up telling him the truth, or at least my version of the truth. I confessed that I had given the car away, that someone needed it more than we did, that it was better for it to be used for work instead of continuing to gather dust in a garage. I will never forget the expression on his face. I saw rage in his eyes. A mixture of disbelief and contained fury. He yelled at me, asking if I didn't remember what that car meant to him. I honestly didn't remember. I knew it was his grandfather's car, but I didn't understand how much sentimental value it had. To me, it was just an object. So I replied with what seemed logical to me at the time. But you never even used it, it was just rusting away. That sentence only infuriated him more. He yelled that I had to bring the car back exactly as it was, or he would divorce me. I was frozen. I didn't understand how he could threaten divorce over something like that. I felt offended. I thought he was exaggerating, that he was just saying it out of anger, but no. He was completely serious. Still, I tried to remain calm. I told him I would solve the problem, that it wasn't necessary to go to such extremes. He gave me a deadline. He said that if I didn't have the car back by that date, everything between us would be over. I spent hours thinking about how to fix it. I finally decided the best thing was to go see Leonardo. He would understand. If I asked him calmly, he would return the car. The next day, I went to look for him. I found him at his front door, smoking. He was surprised to see me and asked me what I wanted with an arrogant attitude I had never seen in him before. I asked if he was having a bad day, trying to sound friendly, but he cut me off. "Speak quickly," he said, without even inviting me in. It was obvious he was on the defensive, so I was direct. I asked him to give me the car back. I explained that my husband had found out and that I needed to get it back. I promised him I would take responsibility for everything and find a way to get him another one. His face changed. At first, he seemed confused, but then a smile formed on his face that chilled me to the bone. "Sorry, darling, but I already sold it," he said with complete nonchalance. "What you gave me was a gem. They paid very well for the parts. You have no idea how much you've helped me." I felt my body go cold. I couldn't believe it. He hadn't even used it for work, not for a taxi, not for anything. He had sold the car I gave him for parts. "What do you mean you sold it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He just shrugged. "Relax, it was a good deal. It was a collector's car. Some guy offered a lot for the pieces. It turned out better than I imagined." I was speechless. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. I told him I had a deadline to get it back, that I needed to see it whole before that date. He nodded, smiling. "Sure, darling. I'll see what I can do," he replied as if it were all a game. I left there trembling. I was very scared, but I still believed that somehow I would solve it. I trusted that Leonardo would keep his word, that he would somehow get another similar car or fix something. I wanted to believe him. I returned home with my heart racing. Arturo was in the living room waiting for me. I told him I would have it before the deadline. He didn't give much of a response, just nodded coldly. But he asked for something else, for me to write a statement about what I had done. "Just to have a record," he said. I asked if that would calm him down, and he assured me it would. So I agreed. I wrote everything down, that I had given the car away, that I did it without his consent, that it was an act of goodwill. I signed at the end and handed him the paper. I never imagined he would use that statement against me. The days passed, and the deadline he had set arrived. I went to look for Leonardo again, hopeful, but he no longer lived there. An elderly neighbor told me he had left a week ago without notice and hadn't even finished paying the rent. I felt a pit in my stomach. I stood there in front of the empty house, not knowing what to do. I went home crying, and when I told Arturo, his gaze was that of someone who had already made a decision. "I've already started the divorce proceedings," he told me without raising his voice. I begged him not to. I told him he couldn't leave me over a car, that I would buy another one if necessary. But he interrupted me. "I don't think you understand the magnitude of things. And of course, you will pay me for my car. I will not stay another minute with a woman who sold the car that held the greatest value in my family." There was no more discussion. He took his things and left, leaving me alone in the house. Weeks later, the official notification arrived, the divorce and the lawsuit for the value of the vehicle. When my lawyer explained what was happening, I couldn't believe it. During the hearing, I learned that the car was worth a fortune. It was a collector's model, one of only a few that existed in the country. When I heard the figure, I felt like the world was crashing down on me. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was an old piece of junk. My lawyer explained that by signing the statement, I had admitted my guilt, that I had to compensate him completely. I tried to defend myself by saying the car was part of the marriage, therefore it belonged to both of us, but I was corrected immediately. They told me that since the vehicle was an inheritance, it was not part of our shared assets. It was my husband's own property. That meant I had to pay him the full value. In that moment, I understood that I was lost. When my own family found out what happened, they mocked me. My brother was the cruelest. "You're an idiot," he told me. Even I remember how Arturo took care of that car. "What were you thinking? I tried to justify myself. I told him the car had been gathering dust in the garage for a long time, that no one used it. He looked at me with contempt. Do you know why it was there? Because he works all day, not because he had forgotten it. I doubt he ever strayed far from that car. And don't even think we're going to help you. You'll figure this out on your own. I felt my soul break. Not only had I lost my husband, but also the respect of my family. Meanwhile, Leonardo had disappeared off the map. I tried to contact him, but his number no longer existed. His house was empty, without a trace. I couldn't even get the car keys back. And as if that weren't enough, the debt fell on me like a ton of bricks. The court ruled that I had to pay the full value of the car plus legal fees. I had no way to do it. Arturo got the house. I was left with just enough to start over. I tried to propose a payment plan to him, but he was determined. He wouldn't even look at me. Now I work just to cover the debt. Every month that passes, I feel like I'm still paying for my naivety, for having trusted someone who took advantage of me. All of this started with a good intention. I thought I was helping. I thought I was doing something noble. But all I managed to do was destroy my life. Leonardo took advantage of my kindness, and Arturo punished me for my stupidity. Update 1. Seriously, people are messed up. Yes, I was stupid, but I always had a good intention. I still can't believe my husband left me over a car. Everyone talks as if I did something unforgivable, when all I wanted was to help. I don't care what they say. Because if you don't understand that I was taken advantage of, then you are the ones who are wrong. It hurts that no one sees beyond that no one understands my mistake was trusting too much. Fine, don't believe me, I'm used to it. And I've said it several times, it wasn't infidelity. What happened between Leonardo and me was just a show of gratitude. It doesn't need to come to light, much less reach Arturo's ears. It wasn't love, it wasn't desire, it was a confusing moment, and that's it. So stay out of it. The worst part is that my own family turned their backs on me too. It seems I was the only one who didn't remember the value of that car, but everyone acts as if I committed a crime. And for those who claim to be concerned about me, sarcasm, I'm fine, thanks. I live in a small apartment, with just the essentials. It's not much, but I manage. Sometimes I laugh to myself thinking that this all started because I wanted to do a favor. How ironic. I've tried to contact Leonardo, although it's not worth it anymore. He disappeared from the map as if the earth had swallowed him whole. And although a part of me still wants to find him, not because I miss him, but because I want to understand why he did this to me, I know it won't do any good. Still, I keep hoping for a chance with Arturo. I wish he would listen to me, understand that my naivety got the best of me, that I never wanted to hurt him, that I was just naive. But it seems in this world you can't trust anyone anymore. You try to help, and you become the bad guy. You give something without expecting anything in return, and everyone points at you as if you've sinned. It makes you not want to help anyone ever again, knowing that even good intentions can destroy you. Update 2, Husband's Post. The police conducted a raid on a scrapyard where they were dismantling stolen cars, and they notified me that among the seized vehicles, they found parts that matched my old car. I'm not going to lie, since I read the report, I've felt a rage that I can barely contain. Every time I think about it, it makes me sick. And they say that men are the ones who forget dates, details, anniversaries. And it turns out my own wife was the one who forgot the value of the car that represented my history. I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about something much bigger. That car was the last link I had with my grandfather. We restored it together when I was a teenager. With him, I learned how to change a carburetor, to clean spark plugs, to listen to the engine until I knew when it was perfect. Every mark, every dent had a story. It was our project, our shared heritage. And to think that Andrea, my ex-wife, said she didn't remember what it meant to me. I told her so many times. I even took her out for meals in it several times when we were first dating. She herself said she loved it, that it seemed like a car with a soul. And after all that, she had the audacity to give it away. When I received the notice from the police, I went to the place myself. The raid was over, and the site was chaos. Scrap metal everywhere, open engines, rusty parts, a car cemetery. The smell of burnt oil and metal was unbearable. There, I spoke with the manager, a skinny guy with a dirty face and hands full of grease. He was being interrogated, but when he heard me say the model of the car, he looked up. He told me he remembered perfectly receiving it. According to him, a cousin of his had brought it in a few weeks earlier, telling him to help him disassemble it because he had a buyer for the parts. The strange part was what came next. The manager told me that his cousin had laughingly said that a woman had given him the car. A woman who, in return, only asked for something very specific, to sleep with her. If they give me a car for one night, the cousin had said, that's winning twice over. That's when I understood the missing piece of the puzzle. My ex-wife had not only lied to me and given away a family heirloom, but she had also been unfaithful to me with the same guy she gave it to. I don't know if there's a worse humiliation than finding out about a betrayal like that after the divorce, when everything is already over and you can't do anything. It was like a punch to the gut. Late, but just as painful. The manager kept talking as if he didn't notice my face. He said his cousin had sold almost all the parts and that the little that was left, he gave to the workshop as a gift. It was a beautiful car, he commented. I didn't have the strength to respond. I left there feeling like I had lost more than a vehicle. I lost trust, the memory of my grandfather, faith in the judgment of the woman I thought I would share my life with. Obviously, the first thing I did was go tell Andrea's family everything. During the divorce, they had shown a lukewarm stance. They said they were sorry for me, but they also justified her. She was always the spoiled one, the untouchable daughter. So I thought it was only fair they knew the whole truth. When I told them, they couldn't even speak. The father just stared at the floor without saying a word. Her mother started crying, saying she couldn't believe it. And the brother, who was always the toughest, got up from his chair and sided with me. Now I understand everything. I thought it was just stupidity, but this is something else. They themselves promised me they would no longer support her. Andrea wasn't a victim, but an irresponsible person disguised as a good Samaritan. They told me they were ashamed, and her brother, who is the one who financially supports the family, assured me he would not help her again. She has to learn what it costs to ruin someone else's life, were his words. I don't know if that will be true, but I want to believe they will this time. Andrea always had everything easy. I couldn't help but think about my car. While I considered it an object of love, memory, and family, she saw it as a pile of scrap metal that she could give away to anyone who smiled nicely at her. Andrea says I'm cold, that I punished her over a car, and I swear I would do it again. The memory of my grandfather is worth much more than a woman. And to top it off, she still has the nerve to ask me for a chance. Because yes, despite trying to keep my distance, blocking her everywhere, and avoiding any contact, she keeps seeking me out. She says she still loves me, that we can get over it, that it was a misunderstanding. But there's no going back. Putting aside for a moment what she did with my car, now knowing that she was also unfaithful buries any trace of affection. I don't feel pity or sadness. Only hatred and disgust for the woman I once called my wife.